winter break, I went to stay at a mountain lodge in Prefecture-N. It belonged to my uncle, who was in his 30s at the time. He had actually planned to go there with his girlfriend, but they had recently broken up, so he invited me instead. We had always gotten along well, so I was happy to go. He lived in the same city as me, so he picked me up early in the morning. My uncle was a cool guy, the kind of person I looked up to. He taught me about the outdoors, music, and all sorts of interesting things. The drive took 8 hours, but with the music and the talking, the time just flew by. We eventually arrived, stocked up on groceries, and drove up a winding mountain road to the lodge. It was a cozy wooden cabin tucked away in the forest. There were a couple of other houses further down the slope, but they looked deserted. That night, we had a barbecue in the garden. We ate until we were stuffed. Grilled meats, seafood, and rice cooked over the fire. After dinner, we relaxed by the fireplace, played video games, and eventually started telling ghost stories. My uncle was a master at this, and he really started to creep me out. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, he muttered, "Listen, whatever you do, don't go onto the mountain behind this house." He said even the locals stayed away, and mentioned that a man who owned a nearby lodge had hung himself on that mountain years ago. After hearing that, I had no intention of going anywhere near it. We stayed up until 5 a.m. before finally going to bed. I woke up after noon to bright sunlight. The mountain air felt amazing. I went back to my room and sat on the balcony, which looked out directly toward that forbidden mountain. I remembered my uncle had a high-powered telescope in the room, so I set it up to look at the scenery. The lens was incredible. I could see birds on distant branches with perfect clarity. I had been looking for about 30 minutes when I saw something move among the trees on the forbidden slope. It looked like a person. A man, viewed from the back. He was completely bald, and his whole body was swaying rhythmically. What was truly bizarre was that despite it being the dead of winter, he was buck naked. He was holding a scythe. My mind raced. Was it some weird ritual? His movements reminded me of those avant-garde Buto theater dancers. An instinct screamed at me, "Don't look at this." But curiosity won. I dialed the zoom to the maximum. His skin was a deathly pale white. Then, while still swaying in that sickening dance, the figure slowly turned around. He had a nose and a mouth, but no eyebrows. And right in the middle of his forehead, where the bridge of the nose meets the brow, was a single, large eye, set vertically. I started shaking. This one-eyed freak made eye contact with me through the lens. His mouth twisted into a grin. "Hey!" The moment our eyes met, I screamed. Tears poured down my face. A sudden, overwhelming wave of soul-crushing depression hit me. All I wanted to do was die. I was losing my mind, pacing the room in a frenzy until my uncle burst in. "What happened?" he yelled. "A monster! The telescope! The mountain!" I managed to choke out. My uncle looked through the eyepiece. He let out a choked groan and collapsed, clutching his head and sobbing. He started wailing his ex-girlfriend's name. I realized he was losing it, so I did something I'd never done. I slapped him across the face as hard as I could. After a few seconds, he looked at me. "Jashi," he whispered. "The evil eye." He told me to grab the sunglasses from his desk, one pair for each of us. He put them on with trembling hands and looked back through the telescope. After a moment, he signaled me to look. Through the dark tint, the image was blurry, but I saw him again. The dread was still there, but the glasses seemed to act as a shield, making it manageable. But the thing was moving. It was performing that same jelly-like dance, swaying down the slope, and it never took its eye off us. It was coming for the lodge. "Can you use the bathroom right now?" my uncle asked. He told me to fill a plastic bottle with urine. He came back with his own bottle already filled. "When I was a kid," he explained, "my father told me that strange things happen in the mountains. You'd hear voices outside the tent at night, but no one was there. If you sprayed urine around the tent, it would stop instantly. He looked through the telescope again, groaning in pain. It's moving slowly, but it's definitely coming here. I told him we should just get in the car and run, but he shook his head. It's a curse, an evil gaze. Unless we shift its interest to something else, it'll follow us forever. He told me he had seen something like this before when he was working in Scandinavia, and he insisted we had to go out and meet it. I wanted to hide inside, but I trusted him. We packed our gear, sunglasses, bottles of urine, a baseball bat, and flashlights. We set an ambush in a clearing about 500 meters from the lodge. We have to get close, my uncle whispered, but don't look directly at it. Use your peripheral vision. Then we douse it with the urine, and if that doesn't work, we show it our genitals. He explained that the Jashi hates anything impure or filthy. We sat in the heavy silence, waiting. It was 4 p.m. Suddenly, I heard a voice. It was my younger brother, who had died in a car accident years ago. Wake up, big bro. You're gonna be late for school. Then a scream. Wake up, or you'll die! I snapped awake. We had both fallen into a trance. It was 5:30 p.m., and the sun was nearly gone. Then we heard it, a high-pitched, eerie singing coming from the bushes. It was a folk-like melody that made everything in the world seem disgusting and hopeless. Flashlight, only at its feet, my uncle barked. Pale, hairless legs emerged from the brush. The thing dropped to all fours and thrust its face directly into the beam of my light. I saw it in person. That same suicidal depression washed over me. I wanted to die just so I wouldn't have to see that face anymore. My uncle dropped his bottle and started wailing. The thing was crawling toward us like a newborn colt, twitching, with a rusted scythe in its hand. Then, my uncle's phone rang in his pocket. The sound seemed to break the trance. He let out a roar, grabbed the flashlight, and snatched my bottle of urine. Close your eyes, he yelled. I hit the ground and covered my head. My uncle later told me he took a mouthful of the urine and sprayed it like a mist directly into that single vertical eye. The thing let out a shriek like a horse. Then, in a final act of desperation, my uncle dropped his pants and shone the light on himself. The creature let out a stream of hateful curses and finally turned its back on us. Even as it retreated, it kept up that hideous song, swaying and moving with the agonizing slowness of an old man with a cane. We watched it until it vanished into the blackness. Back at the lodge, after locking every door, my uncle told me the rest. Years ago in Scandinavia, a friend had taken him to see a man who possessed the evil eye. The man sat in a dark room wearing sunglasses. To prove his power, he had my uncle tied to a chair. The moment he took off his glasses and looked at me, I felt exactly what we felt today, my uncle said. It's not hypnosis. It's a level of malice that makes you lose the will to live. He heard later that the man was murdered by the mafia. They found him tied to a chair in a brothel, covered in filth, having clawed his own eyes out in agony. That thing on the mountain? I don't know if it was a monster or a person raised that way, my uncle sighed. But it seems these things hate impurity more than they hate prayers or charms. I told him about the dream of my dead brother waking me up. He listened quietly, then said, maybe. And that phone call that broke my trance? It was from my ex-girlfriend. But look at my phone now. There's no signal up here. Not a single bar. He smiled weakly, finished his coffee, and stood up. Let's get out of here. I'm selling this place tomorrow.